Welcome to my TikTok friends, the podcast about the app where everyone goes viral. I'm your host, Dan Vadabonker, and this week's guest is my friend Rach, who is an amazing person from Australia. I just think it's so amazing that I can have a friend like Rach in Australia, that I can know people who live entirely across the planet from me. I think it is the miracle of this age that we have such connectivity to everyone around the world. Rach is an incredible creator on TikTok. She does themed months of movies, and she basically kind of picks an overall theme for the month, and then all the movies she watches in that month follow that theme, and then she'll post a review of it on TikTok, and it's very nicely done, and she's got this fun little intro that she does.
Hello, lovelies. Rach here with a month of space, the final frontier. And today's film is Interstellar. Let's go.
Let's go, she says at the beginning. And it is just so much fun when I see her pop up on my feed. I always smile and I look forward to hearing her thoughts. Sometimes I agree with her, sometimes I don't. And I think it's interesting the types of movies and the themes she chooses to do. Sometimes it's very broad. Sometimes it's very, very specific. She did recently a themed month about female directors. And I thought, wow, how is she going to do a whole month of that? And she managed to find quite a few amazing films directed by some incredible female directors. Rach has also shown me some incredible support. As I talked about my depression last episode, she messaged me, and she also posted her own video talking about her own very difficult year.
I was watching a TikTok by Dan Watches Movies this morning where he talked about how he struggled with mental health for the last 12 months. And I thought, same, bro, same.
And we talk about that in this conversation as well. Anyway, I'm talking too much. I'm rambling. Let's get on with it. Here is my TikTok friend, Rach. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Good. Did I get the timing right? Is it 10 a.m. over there?
It is 10 a.m., yeah.
Oh,
I was really impressed.
Googled it. I mean, and you said, I mean, it says in your bio that you're in Melbourne, so I should have checked that, but it's pretty easy to figure out, I think. It's a little weird to comprehend. I sent you the thing and I said, you're like, okay, I have to go to sleep now. And I went to work. I spent a full day at work sleeping.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to go to sleep.
It's been a thing.
Cool. Well, it's like 7 o'clock here, so it's not too late. So this is perfect.
It is perfect timing.
Awesome.
Gosh, you've got great hair. I've never noticed that, but you've got really great hair.
I have my grandfather to thank for the full head of hair.
See?
Yeah, my dad was bald. So, yeah, my grandfather had a full head till he died. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you, though.
Well, that works out well.
I often feel self-conscious about my hair when I do videos, when I do TikTok videos and stuff, because I do them, like the trivia ones I do in the morning, and I don't always have time to do stuff or whatever. I'm just messing stuff and I just go, but sometimes I kind of focus on that a bit too much and worry about it. And then people leave weird comments about my hair. I got a comment once that was, someone said, "You're giving me something about Mary vibes with that hair." And I'm like, I just said, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know. Like, what are you saying? I don't know. It's just
you just do a laughing emoji and move on. That's how
right.
You
that's right. I don't know. Do you ever
I have to be honest. I had never noticed your hair until now. I think probably because I do your trivia and go, I'm such a nerd.
Well, sometimes you don't even notice things about the people, and you see, like I see you every day. I do notice your hair because your hair is a very distinct color, and it's kind of catches the eye, draws the eye. But you see people every day, like your TikTok friends. You see the same people all the time. They're posting every day, and just kind of you see their face. You kind of become used to it, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's very, very cool. So how did you get, I'm going to guess you started going on TikTok during the pandemic. That seems to be the common
Yeah.
denominator for many of us, many people I've talked to is like that's like everybody had to stay inside, so we all just went on our phones and started posting videos.
Yeah. Well, what started for me, I was probably a few months into the pandemic, and one of my friends kept sending me TikTok videos. And she's like, you have to join TikTok. And I've gone, I don't really think that I'm up to being on camera. And I had when Instagram brought in stories, I had been big in the stories world on Instagram.
Mm.
And I had overnight gone from having like 300 followers to having like 5,000 followers on Instagram.
Wow.
And just because I would talk. And so I was like, but it was at a time in my life when I just felt like I really needed that. And during the pandemic, like I wasn't really at that point. I worked through a lot of the pandemic. So unlike most of my friends who had sort of been put on furlough, I was still working every day. And realistically, when they announced that there was going to be lockdowns, I'm not gonna lie to you, Dan, I went out and bought the complete series of Sabrina the Teenage Witch and the complete series of Game of Thrones and thought, there we go, that'll do me, I'll be fine.
Awesome. That's
And,
awesome. I love that.
yeah. And so I joined up just because she said to me, you don't have to do videos. I've been on this for months and I haven't done any. And I joined up and I think I lasted about a month before I went, oh God, I can't just keep watching other people do stuff. And I had no idea what I wanted to do with it in the beginning. Like, no idea. I was just like, but I would watch the trends and go, I'm never dancing, but okay.
And that was one of the early ones. That was one of the big ones that caught on early that everyone kind of associated TikTok with, right? The dancing trends that are still
Yeah,
pretty popular. Like you do a month up, so you do like themed months where
I
you
do.
do like all these movies in the same kind of category. When did you kind of start doing that?
Um, I started it for December of, it must have been December of 2020. And it was because I was stuck in my house and we had very strict restrictions on Christmas and things here. And I'm from a really big family. So the idea of spending Christmas with one or two people seemed really sad to me. And so I just started watching as many Christmas movies as I could because, let's get some fake serotonin in there so that you don't feel quite so sad. And Hallmark is really good at that, right? Let's move to a random town as a lawyer, meet a guy who's a wood chopper and go, yes, absolutely. Why have I never thought to move to a small town Christmas farm? Um, and I sort of shared a few thoughts on these. In the beginning, I think I was doing like 30-second reviews. And and I was, because everybody was on TikTok, I was getting like thousands of people watch these reviews and interact with them. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. And then, fast forward a few months and it sort of dropped off a lot. But yeah, it's just sort of, I thought, oh, I'll do a month of Christmas. And then in my head, I thought, okay, and October is obviously a month of Halloween.
Right.
And we can do February because of Valentine's Day, right? That can be a month of love stories. The other months are difficult.
Well, now they're not even, it has nothing to do with
finding
the actual
stuff
month
to
it's in anymore, right? Like this month you're doing
yeah,
space just because it's
yeah,
like it's just a topic,
yeah.
right?
Just
But you've done other
well,
things,
I
I
mean,
thought.
and sometimes I will push an agenda. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes when I'm giving options, because I let people vote on what my topic
Oh,
should
right.
be. And sometimes I'll push an agenda because I've watched a certain movie and I really want to do a review of it. and,
Yeah.
and so I'll just sort of push that in there. And and so space, a month of space came from that.
Mm.
And but it's just been a crazy kind of month. So it actually hasn't worked out the way I wanted it to. But
In
some
what
months
way?
are amazing and you get like 15 or 20 reviews, and then some months you get 3 or 4 in and you go, yeah, okay, I'll classify that as a good month.
Okay. So it's like you just kind of try and get as many in as you can and that you're happy with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I really, when people nominate films, that's when I really feel obligated.
Okay.
Like if somebody has gone to the time to watch a video and then go a TikTok. See, I keep calling them videos because I'm that old.
They are
When
videos, you're not wrong, right?
Yeah, and so if somebody goes to the effort of interacting and nominating a film, particularly if it's a film I haven't seen, I'm never going to turn down the opportunity to watch a movie.
Sure.
I have learnt the hard way though, if you slam movies that people love, they don't always react well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I get that a lot too sometimes in the comments. And people, I found that certain films are really polarizing, right? You'll get people who
Yeah.
love it, people who hate it. The last one I did was the most recent Batman movie, the Robert Pattinson Batman movie.
Hmm.
And there are people, I've had people in my comments who absolutely hate it. They cannot stand it. How do you feel about it? I should ask you how you like it. Have you seen it?
Um, yeah, I have seen it. I actually watched it because my hairdresser told me to.
Okay.
Um, I look, I was raised on Michael Keaton as Batman. And so very much Tim Burton, sort of cartoonish almost.
Hmm.
And then I really loved Nolan's Batman, and I didn't know what. And like Ben Affleck, that was just filler for me. Ben Affleck was Val Kilmer. That was just filler. Um, and so I was a bit nervous. I think it's incredibly well done. I think Robert Pattinson in particular has done a really good job with it. I think the reason that it's polarizing is because people have a problem with him,
Oh, is
and
that
they
it?
don't. Oh yeah, because he was Edward in Twilight, and I think it's sort of almost like, Mark Hamill never got to do anything else. And I think sometimes people go, nope, I can only see them as one character. And I think it is a much darker version of Batman than those of us that were raised on Michael Keaton have. There was a lot more comedy in those, but Nolan exposed us to dark Batman. So I don't quite get any other sort of resistance to it. I think I rate it. I think it's a really good film.
It's really well done. And I also initially didn't like it. I kind of, but that was more about too much Batman. I think a lot of the hate is
Yeah.
just people overwhelmed with Batman. Like there's just, we cannot have a break, please. And when I looked at it and I just watched them all and I realized there was a 10-year break between the last Nolan one in 2012 and this one in 2022. But we also had Affleck in there. We had the two Batfleck stuff and we had all those, that
Oh,
DCU stuff and all the comic book movies, and so it didn't really feel like 10 years between those two
no.
Batmans, right? And so yeah, and I just think that they're just the it feels like Warner Brothers is just itching to make another Batman movie. They just cannot wait to crank it out because they're guaranteed money makers. And that kind of, when
Yeah.
I think about that kind of stuff, it just makes me hate the industry, right? Just that's not what it's about. It is for that part of the industry, but I want them to make great movies, right?
Are you the kind of person, Dan, that finds something good in every movie you watch?
So I try to enjoy a part of it, because what am I watching it for? Even bad
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, that's true.
I'll give you an example of that. I was just out thrifting on my break. I work in downtown Winnipeg, which is kind of an old area. The Exchange District kind of like it goes around early 1900s is when it was all built, and so there's a lot of cool old buildings and an old thrift store there. And I found Mac and Me. You familiar with Mac and Me? The science fiction. It's like a ripoff of E.T. kind of. It's like it's an
It,
80s
it's
movie.
it's a very old movie.
It's
Yeah, no, I
yeah, it's
remember
old.
it.
It's really bad. It's a famously bad movie. It's like one of those ones people make fun of, and Mystery Science Theater and everybody does their versions of it.
I feel
And
like I watched it as a child and I haven't watched it since.
yeah, me too. I haven't either. And
Yeah.
but I do remember my father bringing it home from the video store and us watching it. And so I found it. I'm like, I'm gonna watch this with my son, with Jack, because I know that he and he said he'll start watching it. He didn't say he'll finish it, but he'll start watching it. But that kind of stuff, I just love finding that kind of stuff. And I can't even remember how I got on this tangent, but that's okay. I lose my train of
Oh,
thought
because
lots.
I was asking you if you're the kind of person that finds something good in every
Well,
movie
yeah, I
you
was gonna say
watch.
even in Mac and Me. Well, the Mac and Me thing they give that gives us that one joke that Paul Rudd always does on Conan O'Brien. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's the kid going down in the wheelchair. It's a kind of a
Oh yeah,
meme
yep.
image, and that clip is from Mac and Me. That's what that it's just this is what happens. The kid meets the alien when his wheelchair goes down a hill and into the and the alien saves him. So
It sounds to me like an incredibly realistic
of
movie and
course.
perhaps a good one to watch for a month of space.
Oh, you could try that. Yeah, there's one you could add to the list for sure. You might have fun with that one. But anyway, the whole thing was that people like, yeah, they absolutely are divisive. And the more divisiveness you get, the more people arguing, the better your videos do, right? You ever find that people
Yeah.
really get angry and get worked up about it, then it starts skyrocketing.
I mean, that is true. I have only twice had to take down reviews though,
Oh,
and they were both of them were, were because people were really, and they were movies that I wouldn't have thought were controversial to have a negative opinion on. And to be fair, I pretty much can find something good in every movie. Sometimes it's just that it's over, but there's always something good in every movie.
yeah.
And there was two movies. So one is P.S. I Love You, with Hilary Swank and Jared Butler.
Okay.
And I had read the book. I'd read the book before I'd seen the movie. And so I was deeply saddened by the movie because the book was just next level. And what's funny is Jared Butler, even though he's supposed to be playing an Irish guy, but he has a Scottish accent for the whole movie, I can ignore that because Jared Butler's essence in that movie is that character. But Hilary Swank was miscast,
Okay.
and the book takes place in Ireland. And Ireland is a character in the book, pretty much,
Mhm.
right? And they moved the movie to New York. And sometimes that works, High Fidelity, that worked. You can move London to Chicago and that works because you're moving a city to a city. But you can't move Rolling Green to urban neighborhood. It
Right.
it didn't work. And but there are so many people who have only seen that movie and they are like they were vicious. And I wasn't even that harsh. I gave it a 5 out of 10. Like, it's really, really difficult for me to give anything less than 5 because I'll be like, well, they tried really hard, you know, they just didn't quite get that.
So many people worked on this
Sometimes,
movie, right? You don't want to make them feel
yeah,
worthless.
yeah. And so I think I gave it a 5 out of 10 or a 4.5 out of 10. Either way, it wasn't the worst score I've ever given anything. And I just got obliterated by all these women going, that movie made me believe in love. And I felt like going, he dies of a brain tumor in the first 5 minutes and he makes her spread out her mourning even longer. Please raise your expectations of men.
Right.
you know? And I was just so I was like, oh my gosh. Like and I wasn't expecting it. And it was like I'm at work and my phone is blowing up and I'm like, oh, and because I don't normally get notifications, I deliberately don't have notifications turned on from TikTok because I used to watch too much to see whether people were watching videos.
Yeah, me too.
So I deliberately don't have notifications on. But when it gets to a point where it's sort of, I think it comes on like if I get 50 comments or something, I get like a notification, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever had a video get that many comments. What's going on? And people were fighting in the comment section, and I'm like, and I'm just gonna delete this because it's. I mean, Hilary Swank won actual Oscars for actual movies that actually made a difference. Go watch those. um, so
Good
that
for
was
you.
one, and the other one was 50 Shades of Grey, and
Oh,
that they were both in the same month. They were both nominated for movies for a month. I think in the Valentine's Day month,
mm,
and I'm going to be honest, I tried to read 50 Shades of Grey and I felt like my eyes were burnt from the sockets. And the movie was just so disappointing. Jamie Dornan is an amazing actor. He's done some incredible things in Britain and in Ireland.
I saw him
And
in
he
something
just was,
recently, and he was really good. And I can't remember what it was, but yeah, he was, and he had his
yeah,
actual Irish accent, and
yep,
yeah, I'm like, yeah, that guy
yeah.
can act. I guess. I guess it was
Yeah,
a directing thing.
he really can. He really can. And so I had gone into watching this movie, seeing these things that he's done where he's amazing. And I'm 2 seconds in and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And it was almost like everybody banded together to be mediocre because, like, you had Marcia Gay Harden has won an Academy Award and she's just there, like, phoning it in. And I'm like, this must have been a really great paycheck for people. And Dakota Johnson, who I hadn't at that point, I'd never seen her in anything else. So I didn't know whether or not that was an accurate reflection of her acting ability. Um, but I that was painful. I sat there the first 10 minutes, I thought, I'm gonna really hate this. And then like just every part of it. And I mean, realistically, the BDSM community is probably a really, really interesting community to make films about. Don't make that film. You can
But
make a
that's
better
another
film
example of
about that.
Hollywood chasing the dollar, right? Best-selling
Mm.
book, we have to adapt it. That was after like there was the Hunger Games at that time. Harry Potter really kicked off the whole thing, right? That's what
Yeah,
all these book
yeah,
adaptations making so much money. And so they just kept, and they didn't really care. There was nobody actually looking at the quality of the film at the time just to see if it was actually
yeah,
good. They just wanted to pump it out. And they had to get all three out, right? Because there were three books and they had to get
yeah.
all three out in a timely fashion. Um,
Oh, there's three of those.
yes, they made all of them. They made all of those into movies. They get
There
even
is
worse, I've heard.
there
I've
is
not seen
one,
any
Dan,
of
and
them.
I got through that one, and that will do.
How do you, so you talk a little bit about how like at the beginning you were getting lots of views and lots of you kind of start out that way when you start on TikTok and then it dies down as you, I mean, mostly because you're doing the same kind of thing and people tend to want to see new things. But how do
Yeah.
you feel about that when that happens? Are you okay with that, or was it rough at first and you have to deal with it?
Um, it was really rough at first because I remember watching videos of people saying, "Oh, nobody's watching my stuff," and I don't want to say I was cocky, but I was a little bit like, "Oh, well, that's not a me problem," you know. And then it very much was, and I sort of you notice it, and then I realized, um, I think I really sort of had a problem with it about 18 months ago because I realized that my actual content, where it was anything that required my brain, was getting minimal views. And then the things that were getting a lot of views were lip syncing to audios, or I don't do thirst traps, but I guess things that would fall more into the attention seeking category. That's what we're going to call it.
Sure.
But yeah, and I got a bit disillusioned with that, where I was just like, but I've actually got opinions and I've got knowledge and I am really passionate about this thing, and that's where it had come from. That I have loved films my whole life. I have been passionate about films my whole life, and here was an outlet where I could talk about that and actually show my knowledge, my understanding, my appreciation, and then all of a sudden, it felt like everybody was going, "We actually don't care about that. We just want to see you transition when you get your hair done," or something. And I was like, "Mm." And so I backed off a little bit. And then part of me, somewhere in the last year or so, went, even if I'm just doing this for me, I'm doing this for me. And I'm enjoying it. And good things have come out of that, and friendships have come out of that, and other podcasts have come out of that. So it hit me hard in the beginning, but I'm quite happy with how it's worked out, to be honest.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that because yeah, I went through a similar thing because especially my trivia videos are because those actually got quite a few views at first. I was getting regular like in the multi-thousand views, which is a lot for me, and I was enjoying that. A lot of people commenting. I think my most viewed one of those was the one in which I didn't know anything about Dirty Dancing. So therefore the comments blew up and everyone's like, what the hell's wrong with you? You don't know. It was like the question was, what does an abortion, I can't remember, 1950s vacation resort, and then something third thing have in common. And oh, Johnny Castle. Is that his name? See, I know it
Yep.
now. I know it now.
Yeah.
It's burned into my brain, but I didn't at the time.
See, as soon as you said abortion, in my head, I thought Henny got knocked up by Robbie the Creep.
Wow.
I have a lot of sisters. That movie was next level in our house growing up.
Mhm.
One of my favorite quotes of all time, and really, I mean, a life motto to live by, is in that movie. And everybody always thinks nobody puts baby in a corner, but no, that's not the one I'm talking about. God wouldn't have given you maracas if he didn't want you to shake them.
That's good. That's a good one. I've only ever seen it once, I think, Dirty Dancing, and didn't
Yeah.
have the same effect on on the male side of the that generation, I guess. Um, but I have since seen it, and I do appreciate it. It's a very good movie, and I think that it deserves its place in our film history. What are some of your other favorite movies?
Oh gosh. I have so many, and I have the ones that when you review films are viewed as acceptable films to be your favorites. And then I have the ones that are ones that everybody would harass me for having as a favorite. Um, I have seen Con Air more than any human being ever should, but
Okay,
I love it.
it's
Every
great.
time I watch it, I love it. And I've seen interviews with John Malkovich where he's explained why he took it. Because someone's like, oh no, you absolutely can't do that. And he's like, I absolutely have to do this movie. And it would have been a massive paycheck, but just like there are movies where it's like everyone's phoned it in to not do anything. It felt like with Con Air, everybody went, we're going to Nicolas Cage the heck out of this. All of us. Nobody has an understated performance in that movie. Everybody takes it up to 12, and it's absurd. And
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, there's a few
Um,
Michael Bay movies like that. Armageddon is similar in a way,
yeah,
where like
yes.
they all have their presence, they all have their personalities, and everybody just knocks it out of the park. And for a while, Michael Bay had that going, and then I don't know, did Transformers
And then Pearl
movies.
Harbor.
Oh yes, Pearl Harbor. But yeah, then you lost it, right? But okay, what are some of the other ones you were talking about? Other movies?
I really love. I'm a big Scorsese girl, and I
Okay.
really love Goodfellas. Goodfellas would be, definitely top 10 for me. My dad was a big film lover, and my dad passed away when I was quite young,
Hmm.
and he was aware that it was going to happen. He'd been sick for a long time, and so he when I was 7 years old, he started what he called my film education,
Hmm.
and I was the 7-year old that could give you basically a thesis on The Godfather and why it was such a great movie. The Godfather that is rated R, by the way. Horse's
Yeah,
head
and
and
like there's a
bang.
severed horse's head in like the first
Yeah.
20 minutes. That's pretty early on, isn't it? The
Yeah,
head
I
horse's
mean,
head scene?
sun is sunny on the causeway, like not just not sheltered from any of that. And
Hmm.
he was a big believer. He made me watch that. He made me watch the original Halloween
Ooh.
because he just thought it was so clever in the way that it was done. And like my dad was not a film was not anyone that would be recognized as a film connoisseur. He was a truck driver. So, but he just really loved movies and really loved films. And it started from there. So it was, yeah, The Godfather is always in there. Goodfellas is in there. Ghostbusters is like the original Ghostbusters. Um, the Blues Brothers, what I would not do for a young Bill Murray or Dan Aykroyd. Can't help it.
No, wow.
Was never a John Belushi girl, but Dan Aykroyd. Uh, yeah, I I I'm more hard pressed to find movies that I don't love and that I wouldn't watch a lot. Um, I tend to find something good in everything. Um, but yeah, I. What about you? What are some of your favorites?
Well, it's always tough to answer that question, I find. And do you have a letterbox? Are you on Letterboxd at all?
I have a letterboxed. I have written about 3 reviews.
Okay.
I need to get better with that because
Yeah, well,
the
I'll
other
tell you what
guys
I
that I
did, and I had the same problem, but now I'm getting really good at it because when I first started doing my little movie review videos, which is just me talking, I'm not on camera, it's just me talking over basically the trailer footage. I would write them. I started out by just like jotting them down in my notebook at points. And if you listen to the
Mhm.
early ones, you can hear like I'm just kind of like rattling off. I don't sound great, but I'm just kind of like talking in these things about the movie and just trying to get it out. And then I started, well, I have to write. I start writing these out, properly writing these out. So I start typing these out. And I just opened this Google Doc and I would just like every day wake up and whatever movie I just watched, I usually, I mean, I don't always watch a movie every night, but I watch more movies than I do TV.
Same.
So I tend to like it's 2 hours, right? It's not that long to if you're gonna sit there looking at a screen, might as well see a complete story as opposed to
Mhm.
getting some kind of cliffhanger. But anyway, so I started writing them out and it really kind of came together for my first month of Halloween movies. So I did a similar to you, I did a month of all horror movies. I love horror. I was just and I kind of focus it in at Halloween. It's my like I can just make I just live for myself, and most people around me hate horror movies, so they don't like it. So I can never get anybody to watch a horror movie with me. So in October, I just go all in. Anyway, when I first did that, I'm like, okay, I'm going to write every single one out. So I just would type it out in this huge Google Doc. So I have like 100 pages in a Google Doc of these movie reviews until I clued in that I should be just writing these up on Letterboxd. And so I
Hmm.
write them out, but then I copy and paste them into Letterboxd and post them there. So I've been doing that for the last few months. And so basically, I'm at some point I'm going to take that 100 pages and transfer it into Letterboxd, I guess, as far as my reviews go. But yeah, just kind of it's just about building habits, about just getting into the habit of doing it and not worrying about how bad it is when you start, right? You just kind of just go and you'll get better. You'll know you'll get better. Every time you make a new video or do a new thing, you will get better because the familiarity makes you better at it, right?
Yeah. All right.
So that's what I did.
Okay. So a month of horror movies. What would be what are some of the horror movies that you would have on repeat? A horror movie that you would watch every year during the month of Halloween.
There are a few actually that I watch every year, and you could look back and see. Evil Dead, the first Evil Dead is my favorite. I always say it's my
Yeah.
favorite movie. When you ask me that question, what's your favorite movie? Evil Dead is kind of my reflex. But it's more about the not just the movie, but the circumstances around it's being made. Like I love the story of how it was made, of Sam
Hmm.
Raimi and Bruce Campbell and his friends all getting together and like raising the money to make this movie and going off and shooting it in the woods and all that stuff. And I also had a great experience watching the Evil Dead trilogy when I first saw it.
Hmm.
I've made TikTok videos about all this stuff. I did this thing where I just talked about like me and my friend. I saw an ad in a comic book. I was in grade 11, I think, 17 years old. And I saw an ad in a comic book for Army of Darkness, right? Which is the third
Hmm.
movie in the series. But it's not called Evil Dead, and it looks very different. And it's got, Ash, and he's got his chainsaw hand up like that. And I'm like, this looks so cool. And I showed it to my friend. He's like, yeah, let's rent this. And so I went to the video store when we still had video stores, and I talked to Fred at the video store, and he recommended, he's like, oh yeah, that's Army of Darkness, but you have to see these two. And he said you have to see Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. These are the two movies that that come
That
before
that
this.
preceded.
Right. So I said, oh, okay. And we hadn't planned on watching three movies that night, but we did. We watched all three of them in a row. And it was fucking awesome. It was so much fun. It was probably one of the first times I'd done that, where I watched like all three movies in a row or had a long extended watching streak like that. And so
Hmm.
that's really the reason why that's my favorite movie. So I do watch that every year. I watch The Exorcist every year. That's just also just I don't for somehow The Exorcist warms my heart. I don't know how that's possible. It's such a
It
horrific
isn't
movie.
it funny the films that other people go what and you're like it's my comfort movie,
Yeah.
and people can't understand how there are movies that, um, yeah, there's just some of the most movies about the most horrendous things in history, and I'm there watching it to fall asleep at night because it's my comfort.
Yeah.
So I have a complicated relationship with horror. I love horror movies, but I am also the world's biggest fraidy cat. And so I horror movies take me a long time to watch if I'm watching it by myself.
Mhm.
So doing a month of Halloween or a month of horror movies. I mean, Halloween is easier because you can put there are movies about Halloween that
Right.
aren't necessarily horror movies.
And there are
You
also
know,
like
and
monster movies, vampire movies, like other types of genres that get into the Halloween. Like I do all that
yeah,
stuff, and that could all be a part of it
yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But horror movies, I did a month where I just and like I would set aside a few days because I thought if I'm gonna feel anxious and on the edge of my seat, let's only feel that way for a couple of days.
Okay.
And I went hardcore, and there are movies that I watched in that month that I will never ever see again. So there is a movie called The Strangers
Mhm.
with Liv Tyler and Scott Speedman, and I don't know what it was about that particular movie, but it scared the living hell out of me, and I will never watch it ever again. And also just for the record, if you live in Australia or the UK, we say Tamara. We don't say Tamara. And
Oh,
in
as
the
far as the
movie,
name, Tamara. Well, I would say
is
Tamara.
Tamara home? And I'm like, oh no, it's Tamara, but no, she doesn't live here. Thanks. Like, that could have been the end of the movie. Like, at least pronounce it right. But yeah, it was. But something about that movie really terrified me, and probably because I went in thinking it was going to be terrifying.
Mm.
Um, I really enjoy horror movies like Insidious and things like that. Like I like things and by enjoy I mean I find them very watchable
Mhm.
for a big scaredy cat like me, like where they will scare me, but I can still watch them all the way through.
How do you
Um
feel as an Australian? How do you feel about the Saw franchise?
um I'm very proud that two guys managed to get it up and get it done. I haven't watched any since I've seen the first three. Are
Okay.
they like 10 now or
There's
something?
10, yes. And my
It's a
daughter
lot,
loves them.
right?
My 15-year-old is crazy for Saw. So we're watching them together. That's how I'm bonding with my
I
15.
I remember going to see the first one at the cinema with my sister, and we didn't know what it was about. We just knew that two Aussie guys had made it
Okay.
and that it had Danny Glover in it. And we're both like, you know, my dad loves Lethal Weapon. So like we have grown up in a household where we quite frequently will quote Lethal Weapon movies. And so we went to see this movie having no idea what it was about. And 2 minutes in, I was just like, oh crap, we've made a mistake. And we were in a cinema. It was just us in this big cinema. And at one point I said to her, I really have to go to the bathroom. And I just unless you come with me, I can't go to the bathroom.
The whole movie takes place in a bathroom. Like, it's like, oh my God, you're terrified of
But
the bathroom now.
but I did that. I remember seeing the first Scream at the cinema as well. And you know, because this is my thing that I always think that I look younger than I am. I'm not. I am very much a kid that was born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s. And I remember going to see the first Scream, and just after she gets attacked in the bathroom, I really needed to go to the bathroom. And I walked in, and there was nobody in there, and I walked straight back out. I went, nope, 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 and a rope.
Hilarious. Do you go to the movies much anymore and to the theater?
I try to go a lot. I live in a very so I live in Melbourne, as you said before. I've only lived here for 2 years. I grew up in Sydney.
Hmm.
And I live in a sort of a small town, and they have a cinema. And so I try to support local. I live in a town where everybody uses that as a slogan, let's support local. And it's worked out well for me in terms of coffee, and the cinema is pretty good too. And what I like about the cinema is that they actually do a series of different retro movies. So one day a week they have a retro musical on. One day a week they'll have a retro film from the 40s or the 50s.
Hmm.
Then they have Rewind, which is usually movies from the 80s or 90s. And then on Tuesday nights at the moment, which is their half price Tuesday, we like half price Tuesday.
Yeah.
On half price Tuesday, they do romantic comedies at the moment. So like I went and watched 10 Things I Hate About You the other week. We
Hmm.
took the kids to see the Blues Brothers because they'd never seen it, and it's my partner's favorite movie. And that was so great. I mean, we hedged our bet. They're 9 and 11. We hedged our bets. One really likes cars and one really likes musicals, so we figured we might be there.
There's lots of crashing going on at the end there, so that's kind of fun to watch. It doesn't really
Yes.
matter what your
Yeah.
age is. It's always fun.
It's not a chain of cinemas. There is a few. I think they're owned by the same people, but it's not like a multiplex.
Okay.
You know, when you because we have big chains in Australia, so we would have Village Cinemas as a big chain, and we have Event Cinemas and Hoyt Cinemas. Those are your three big chains, where there's sort of one every 20 minutes, half an hour, one at every big shopping complex.
Hmm.
This is sort of I would view this as an independent cinema. The people that own it probably have three or four around the whole country.
Okay.
And when I lived in Sydney, there was one in Sydney owned by the same people, and it was quite far from where I was, but I used to go there a lot because they hosted things like I had never seen. God, this is going to sound really morbid. I had never seen Schindler's List in the cinema. I think I was 12 or 11 when Schindler's List came out.
Yeah.
and I think it was the 25th anniversary of the film being released, and I remember going, "That's a film I feel like I really need to see in the cinema." And
Mhm.
and that was the first time I'd gone to this cinema to see it, and yeah, so yeah, it is an independent cinema. There is a multiplex like 15 minutes away as well, but I
Right.
don't tend to go much.
Well, this is the problem. So do you find, is it happening there as well, where those multiplexes, like the independent thing is awesome, and I love to hear that. That's actually like a dream of mine, is to own like a theater like that, to have like,
That's mine too.
do
That's
they
my
do?
dream
Hey,
too.
we should do it together. Do you
Yeah.
have we can open up a chain across like Canada and Australia, and then anyway, never mind. But so those, do you find they're like, well, they sell out well? Like those, do people go to the theater and do they do well that in that independent one?
Um, I think that I think that in other places not as much. I think Melbourne is very much um I kind of make fun of them for this. Melbourne is very much Melbourne has a social conscience.
Ah,
So they're very aware of like the environment, and they're very aware of ethical things, and I think because it is a small business, people like to support a small business.
mhm.
It also really helps that we sort of live in a town that's a little bit isolated, or in an area that's a bit isolated, and so it is convenient to have a cinema there. Um, when we went to see 10 Things I Hate About You, the cinema was full. I've
Okay,
I've
that's
never seen
awesome.
a cinema full. Yeah.
I love to hear that. I love to hear that, because it gives me hope
Yeah.
for that kind of a theater can still, for like, for something that like that to exist for movie lovers. I think will
Yeah.
continue to move forward, but the big multiplexes that are aimed at the mass audiences, those are really struggling right now. Nobody wants
Yeah.
to go see movies. Like, when's the last time you went to see a big blockbuster movie? Did you go see Deadpool and Wolverine?
Yeah.
That's the last one that came out. Well, that's okay. We all went and saw it. But that's not happening very often, right? Like they're
I
basically,
had
that's
a
the
saw
only
that
thing that
last
can
week.
get people to come out are the big movies like that. That's the only thing. Nobody's gonna go out and
Yeah.
see like the Blake Lively. They're trying. Did you hear they're trying to make that into like a Barbenheimer situation with the
That is oh,
Blake Lively movie? So bad.
yeah, I've got attitude about it. Like
Yeah.
I really love it. So the book is really good, and I mean, look, this is a book that doesn't shy away from domestic violence, and it doesn't shy away from not reliving a cycle, doing what you can to break a cycle. And I think that and I mean, and this is no disrespect to Blake Lively, because I do really enjoy her and Ryan Reynolds and their interactions and all those sorts of things. I really love Deadpool and Wolverine. That was really fun to me. The soundtrack was awesome. I feel like the only person that's addressing the subject matter for her new movie is the director. I feel like everybody else is downplaying it and making it this rom-com that women can go and watch together, and I just think that that's really, really. I understand that women can be empowered and they can move forward, but I also think that if women have suffered trauma, don't send them into a movie without an idea of what they're going into.
Exactly. Don't misrepresent
You
what
know?
the movie is, right? It drives me nuts when especially like
Yeah.
trailers do it all the time. Like trailers will take them one movie. I think the last one I remember like that was Mother. Do you remember? Did you see Mother? Mother with
Yes.
the exclamation mark. Um,
Mother.
Mother. Anyway, that one, like, it looks like a horror movie. We went to see it in the theater. 5 minutes in, I'm like, what is this? This is not a horror movie, right? This is a very, very different. And that's like a marketing thing. Like someone in the marketing department made the decision to
Yeah.
misrepresent it. But I think what they're trying to do, the thing about, they're going to keep chasing this Barbenheimer thing, and it's never going to happen again. That was a fluke occurrence. It was just something about the way those two names came together, Barbenheimer. People liked that sound. They liked the idea of there being a nice, fun movie about a pink movie with all this nice fun stuff, and then nuclear missiles, like the two contrasting ideas. There was something
Yeah.
about that everyone seemed to love, and they all came out on the same day and everyone went to see it, but that's not going to happen again. You cannot manufacture that, right?
No.
That is just those are those fluke things that happen sometimes. But geez, that's just Hollywood not really taking the pulse of people, right?
It's yeah. I actually, because I was trying to explain this to somebody last night. I was like, she's not reading the room.
Yes,
She's
that's right.
not reading the room. Yeah. Um, because you could make this. This movie is going to sell big no matter what. This movie is like 50 Shades. It's going to be a big seller because the book was a really big seller. Women will go and see this. But the women that don't know what it's about shouldn't be walking into what they think is this, you know, don't use people's trauma to your advantage.
Yeah.
Right.
Well
It's
said.
just not, yeah, it's just, yeah, that's,
I also
you know,
noticed you starting to do other types of videos. So like Monday, was it Monday? I wrote it down. Movie quote
do
Mondays
movie quote Monday. Yes.
and top five Thursdays. Is that it?
This week is first week of top five Thursday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So what like just trying new things, or was this just keep yourself engaged and having fun?
I used to do movie quote Monday, like when I sort of first started a few years ago. I would do movie quote Monday every Monday. And then if I'm being completely honest with you, Dan, I had a day there where I hadn't picked the topic for the next month, but I had really good hair and really good makeup.
Like,
And I just, we got to utilize this somehow. So if you look back, every movie quote Monday is me with this really awesome straight hair and this really great makeup going on. And and yeah, and that's what will happen. I'm generally speaking a very colorful person, which I understand is difficult for you to imagine given that my hair is a very subtle shade of fire engine red. Um and then I moved to Melbourne and everybody in Melbourne is like black seems to be the only color that people wear here.
mm,
And so when I first started making movies, making movie reviews. It was really obvious if I had done reviews on the same day because I am a colorful person. And then I moved to Melbourne, and all of a sudden I could record a whole month's worth of content a day because everybody just wears black, and I could just wear the same black shirt for every review. And something about this last 2 weeks where I've just gone, I'm not like everybody else. I'm going to go back to wearing color. And then I realized, like, when I look at my videos, I've got like 3 videos in a row where I'm wearing the same dinosaur dress because, yes, I'm a woman in her 40s that wears a dress with dinosaurs on it. And I went, oh, we might need to mix that up a bit.
funny how you don't notice that stuff until after the fact, right? You posted it, it's already up there, and you're like, oh, and you look at that whole page. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, when you said earlier, you used to check too much to see people were watching. I used to do that as well, and that's something I used to get into a bit of a negative loop about, as far as like just, oh, see if it's going up, and especially after the first like time something goes viral or something does really well and you want to continue to do well and you start worrying about why it isn't. I see people freaking out all the time about this stuff. Another one of
Yeah.
my friends gets he like he'll make a video and then if it doesn't like blow up right away, he gets super freaked out and like panics and makes another video complaining about it, kind of thing. And I'm like, I don't do that, but I just I empathize with them, right? Because it's
Yeah.
just weird.
I used to get really caught up on it. And I follow people that do get really caught up on it too. And there's this one person, this one woman that I follow actually who's really lovely and she's based in the UK. And she gets, even on a bad video, she will get 10 or 20,000 people view it. And she was just like, oh, well, no one's seeing my stuff anymore. No one's seeing my stuff anymore. No one's interacting. Like, what's the point? And I actually sent her a message. And I said, I used to think that way too. But realistically, if you're doing this and you're having fun with it, you don't need someone else to tell you that you're doing really well or having fun with this. Unless you're a content creator and this is your form of income, stop worrying about how many people are watching and just enjoy doing it for you.
Yeah.
If you are a content creator and you're doing it for income, well, yeah, I mean, worry because stuff's expensive. But if you're just doing it for fun, it can be fun whether or not people are watching it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that, and the other thing about content creators, and I empathize because it's like their job is to try and get these videos to go viral, but a lot of the times it's just a roll of the dice, right? It is really luck. It's right time, right place, right images in your video or whatever it is that happens to hit. It hits. And when it does happen, it's great. And every once in a while it does. And I just kind of take that as a treat. Like, hey, look at that. That did really well. And I'm really happy. And it makes my day awesome. And I just keep going. And then I go back to like another 300 view video. I'm like, all right, it's fine. The thing is, the people who really want to see it will see it. Like those 300 people
Yeah,
are the ones who are still interacting with the video and the ones who still like it every day and comment or share it or whatever. Like that's a solid audience. And I have faith in that on TikTok. I don't know
yeah,
how it works on other platforms. I'm just starting to kind of post my stuff on other platforms, but on TikTok, I have a good sense of like who's watching my videos.
yeah. Same. And that's what I sort of realized too, is that it is the same people that watch my stuff and interact with my stuff. Some people are always going to be FYP people, and some people are going to do what I do, which is I watch FYP, but I also go through and view my following list. Because why am I following people if I'm not supporting them? Or watching their stuff or seeing what's out there, and particularly with film content. And truthfully, there's not a lot of film content creators that I do follow. I think there's probably about five.
Okay.
um, and so you just got this big smile because you're like, she follows me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be one of those five. Continue and I'll
Yeah.
say something after. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't necessarily follow a lot of film content creators, and part of that is because I find that they'll come up in my FYP if it's something that I want to watch, but also I'm very very conscious of not wanting to accidentally plagiarize what someone else is doing as well.
Yeah, me too. And I find like I swipe away if some even if they look like me, I'm like me. And there's a lot of guys out there that look like me. Like there's a lot of bearded men out there, and I just don't want to
No,
look at their. I don't
only
want to look
one
at
you.
them. What's that?
It's a no, Dan. There's only one you.
Of course, but you know what I mean. Like it's like whenever all the content is similar to mine, I don't want to see it, and that's not fair to those people who are making that content, right? And I do try
Yeah,
to engage. I do the same thing as you. I have a friends. I go through my friends and I watch it. I kind of flip through all the different ones, except for the newest one, which is like the reposts of people. I don't care what anybody else is reposting
yeah,
necessarily.
not a fan.
That one I don't really look at, but everything else I always go through until I've kind of run through all my recommendations. So but yeah, whenever it comes to like the movie stuff that's more similar to mine, I just kind of like I'll give them a like and then I'll just watch for a bit and then I'll keep going and that's it. I don't really engage with it as much as other content,
Yeah,
So and I also find that the longer I'm friends with somebody, like it comes and goes, but I tend not to engage as much if I've been friends with somebody for a while. Like we've been friends on TikTok for a while. I feel like a couple of
yeah,
years. Has it been a couple of years?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's been about a couple. It's
But
been a couple of years.
I feel like our activity wanes. Like we kind of pass each other, comes and goes in the algorithm,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
What's funny is sometimes I will see none of your stuff, and then sometimes I will see 5 videos in a row.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm very conscious to not, if I get 5 in a row, I'm like, I can't just sit here and like 5 in a row because he's going to think I've just gone to his profile and watched the first 5 and just gone. But I'm like, but no, I brought up my friends list, and that's how it's come up.
Yeah. Yeah, you
It's
get that
just
quite a bit.
you like trivia. I stopped answering your trivia questions very early on because I realized how much of a nerd I was. And also because I'd sort of go, I mean, how do I write creatively? Oh, I got 3 out of 3. Like, where I
One
got
woman puts emojis every day. Every day she puts different emojis for each question. She goes and finds an emoji to represent each question. And she like
that's
every day, you look for Diana on in my comments, and every day she only does it for the ones she gets right. She won't do all 3. She'll do like a little airplane if it had to do with a plane movie or something like that. It's really cute. So yeah, and that's kind of what keeps me going. Is like I have a small handful of people that do that kind of stuff that really engage and they do comment, and like people will. The what I really like about what I do is that it brings up these movies to talk about. Like a lot of people just it'll be a jumping off point for a conversation about who is in this
yeah.
movie. I think it was today's video. I didn't know who Oliver Reed was. Do you know who Oliver Reed is?
Of course, I know who
Okay,
Oliver
well,
is.
I think bigger in Australia and the UK then, because I don't know who he is. But the question was about his
He's
final
been in some
performance.
really big movies, Dan.
Like what? Like Gladiator. I knew
Gladiator.
that.
Yeah.
Well, that was what the
He
question was
died
about.
during making Gladiator, I
Yeah, that's what
think.
the question was about. But the I didn't know about who he was. I just said that in the video. Oh, I don't know who that is, but you'll tell me. right? And they do. But most people are nice about it. They're not saying, "Hey, you don't know who he is, jerk." And usually that's the kind of stuff that
Yeah,
drives
it's because you
interactions
haven't
anyway.
said anything about P.S. I love you. You know, you try that, people will come at you.
Well, but again, there are certain movies that people will come at you, right? And I don't know anything about Dirty Dancing, and people get upset. So that kind of stuff happens all the time. What is your least favorite movie of all time? I'll ask you that.
Shallow Hal.
Oh, that's a bad one. Yeah, I saw that in the theater. I'll admit
Yeah,
it. I was a
I
Jack
saw
Black
it.
fan. I and at the time, I don't even think I really realized how bad it was because
Yeah.
you ever come out of the theater and you have that glow of like, oh yeah, I laughed a lot during that. Like it was an okay
It's the
experience.
popcorn. Yeah.
Popcorn, yes, they put something in the popcorn. Yeah, yeah, and even but
Yeah.
I remember I had that feeling after like the Phantom Menace and after the movies that I know were really bad, they're objectively
I
bad,
really
but
love the Phantom.
I came out going, that was awesome. I
I
thought it
know
was
it's so
awesome.
horrendous, but I love it. I
Well,
mean, Jake Lloyd, that poor kid, because like just that poor kid on a number of levels, because he has received hate that he doesn't deserve, but also was George Lucas watching him at all when he
no.
was directing him in that movie? I love the Phantom Menace. Yeah, no, Charlotte Howell. I remember seeing it in the cinemas and finding it mildly amusing in parts. And it sort of left me unsettled in the same way that the Nutty Professor did too.
Yeah.
I At the time that I watched both of those movies, I mean, I'm a bigger woman. I was not a bigger person when I saw those movies, but however, I have sisters that are, I have friends that are, and were at that stage too. And it left me feeling unsettled. And I went back and watched it because I did did a month of nominating movies that you hate
Oh, there you go.
to see whether or not I hated them as well. I don't hate many movies, but Shallow Hal I just couldn't. I I just yeah, it's not funny, and it's also not accurate. It's not accurate. I'm a bigger woman. It's not accurate,
No, and
and
it's a flaw. It's got a flawed concept, I think, and
yeah,
they come off of is it make trying to make it seem like it's good. We're trying to say it, they're beautiful on the inside, but that's
yeah.
not what you're saying. You're saying it's bad to be what they are on the
That,
outside,
yeah.
right? Bad to
But
be fat.
also, you know what? You can be beautiful and fat. I am beautiful and fat. Okay,
Absolutely.
you can be both of those things,
Yeah.
but also it made it just had so many stereotypes about how people ate or how people saw things, and I just I don't get what Gwyneth Paltrow was thinking. I get that Jack Black was trying to get to the next level in his career. I understand that. And the Farrelly brothers come knocking, and you go, okay, well, you know, something about Mary was a big hit. You don't say no to that. But I just think that it's a 2 hour fat joke that wasn't funny in the first 5 minutes, you
Mhm.
know? And there are ways to do it. there are there are ways where you can be funny and just I think that Jack Black addressed weight in School of Rock
Yeah.
and he made it funny and but he also made it that it's not just like there was zero like yeah I don't know it just that the movie makes me really uncomfortable and I really don't like it.
Mhm.
um
So weird that he can
there are
have like such contrasting roles like that, though. Eh? Same guy, different
yeah
movies, and completely different messages
yeah
and everything. It's so strange. That's Hollywood though,
yeah
right? That's what they do.
yeah and I think it was not just I think it wasn't just the fat thing, it was also the fact that the only people that appeared attractive were all people that were viewed as having some sort of thing that would make them seem unattractive. You know, there was one guy who was unattractive because he had dandruff, and I was just like, really?
Yeah, that's right. But they're looking for reasons, right? That's the thing. What happens is
Yeah,
that idea. You start with Gwyneth Paltrow's character and you apply that concept to her, and you have to find more people that follow this same formula. And you're
yeah,
looking for things. You're looking for reasons.
yeah,
Like acne and dandruff and all these things that are like often beyond our control. That are things that just happen to
yeah,
everybody, and
exactly.
there's no reason to be ashamed of them, right?
And I think it's also, I mean, do I think that it accurately reflected what a lot of people in society felt at that stage, and probably as a lot of people probably do feel. I know I have one person in my life who has been a smaller person her whole life, and I know that it would kill her if she ever ended up looking like me. That's okay, because if fat is the worst thing that I can be, then I'm okay with it, because there are so many worse things that I could be. Um, but it does reflect, and just even just there were so many people's attitudes, things that people said to me over the years. I remember my mum telling me that I couldn't afford to be fussy because big girls don't always get the cream of crop. I was a woman who was only ever single when I wanted to be, and why? Because I'm educated and I'm hardworking and I'm kind. Those things, it doesn't matter what you look like on the outside. If you're a good person, I mean, it helps. It helps that I've got a good smile and a killer rack. But
What was the thing
sorry,
again about
that was
the
me,
about the
that was me lightening the
oh, love it. Before I let you go, I really wanted to say thank you. You reached out after I posted the last episode and the last comment when I talked about my depression and talked about my mental health and my struggles over the last year. You first messaged me and said, sorry to hear that, and you offered your support. But then you also posted a video about your own struggles. You would like just kind of put it
yeah.
out there. And I just really want to say thank you for doing that. Thank you for showing me support. And I'm sorry for, everything you've been through. You've had a really rough year as well. So I hope that things get better. I know they will. Of course they are getting better. But yeah, thank you so much for doing that. That just really meant a lot to me. I've never had anybody do that before.
Do you know what? I think I had if I'm being really honest, I was grieving, and I was grieving very silently.
Mhm.
I I live so far away from my family. I've not been with my partner for a very long time. We've been together for 2.5 years, but he didn't really know my mom. And we have his children with us every second week, and they didn't know my mom. Nobody down here knew her. And so I went up it felt like I went up there for a funeral, and I came back and everybody else's life was normal and everybody else was happy and fine. And, people are going, "Oh, you seem sad." And I'm thinking, do I seem sad? And so then you push it down and you try to be something else, and it's not genuine at all. I'm not good at pretending to be what I'm not.
Mhm.
Um, and and I just felt really lost. I felt like I really had to pretend that I wasn't grieving and that I wasn't sad and that I wasn't um struggling. And then you put out this content, Dan, that just made me go, I don't I don't have to pretend to be okay. I don't have to pretend to be okay. Because life will be more okay again at some point, but it just really hasn't been. And you gave me bravery. You gave me the bravery to be able to admit that it has been really fucking hard. Like, it's
It
been
has
really hard,
been really hard. Yeah.
and I talk about, and I was talking to you about the color and stuff, and wearing color, and that I'm a colorful person, and I didn't realize how much I had fallen, and I joked that I fell into the trap of wearing black because that's a Melbourne thing to do, and it is a Melbourne thing to do. But I went into there's a local cafe that I go to get my coffee every day. And I went into the cafe the other day, and I was wearing my dinosaur dress.
Hmm.
And the owner of the cafe and I are pals, and he'll talk to me when I come in. And he just said to me, "I love what you've been doing this last week." He goes, "All this color, it looks incredible. You need to keep doing the color." And I hadn't realized that I had started to make my way out of the grief until he said that, and until I saw your content, because it's just a bubble. You get trapped in this bubble, and my sisters are all in the bubble as well, but they're in the bubble together in another place,
Yeah.
physically in another place. And I was in a bubble that nobody else was in. Nobody else felt anything. And I was saying, and I think as well, my dog, I had to put my dog down last week, and I've had her for so long, and she was just the most beautiful thing. And I rescued her when she was 4, and she was 16 and a half when I had to put her down.
Mhm.
And but everyone in my house is sad about that. And I was explaining to my partner's little one, he's 9. Last night he was sad about it. And I said, but do you know what's really good is that we're all sad together, which means we can all support and love each other and give each other that kindness and remember her together and all those things. And it was a moment when I realized that, yeah, okay, that's I can move forward. But I think talking about it has really helped me get it off my chest. And just thank you so much, Dan, for your courage and your bravery and for being able to do that, because that that made me realize that I could do that too.
Well, thank you for saying that. I just kind of felt like I should give a reason. I feel like, and it's the thing about it is that yeah, you're in a bubble, but it takes time to get out, and it's like you kind of claw your way out, you make progress, and you kind of fall back a little bit, and then you kind of get back. Like it doesn't all come easy, right? You have to work at it. And sometimes you don't even realize when you're out of it, like you said. And that's what this has been about for me is bringing this back and doing a lot of the things that I haven't been doing for the last year, and starting to kind of get into the habit of doing those things and taking joy in these things again. That's part of what this is about for me. So yeah, thank you for being a part of it. Thank you for being on the podcast today. This has been amazing.
Thank you for asking me.
All right, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being my TikTok friend.
No worries. Likewise. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Isn't she amazing? Isn't she hilarious? I just love Rach so much. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and I hope to have her back on again just to update us on how things are going down under. I did not break out the Australian accent. I'm very proud of myself for not slipping into a knifey spoony joke or anything like that while I had her on. But I do love the accent. I'll admit that. Just that Australian no, I can't do it. I'm not going to insult the culture anymore. All right, that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Come on back next time when I'll introduce you to another of my TikTok friends.